Welcome, everybody, to Outpost Unknown, still untitled Star Wars show. I don't know. Maybe we should call it like I don't know, the smiting of Imperial scum. How about that?
Oh, I don't know about that. I
Well, I
would
said
call
Imperial scum.
Oh, Imperial. Oh,
You
okay, okay, wait,
see,
wait, I'm on
I
board. See,
see
this is Imperial mind tricks. I see you're
exactly,
going
exactly.
This is not the title you're looking for. I see what you're doing. I see what you're
Yeah.
doing.
See, I caught you there. I caught you there. This is episode 8 of Andor. We only have 4 more to go, and I'm sad. I'm
No.
like, I just want this
No.
to be on every week for the rest of my life. So,
No.
do you remember what the title of this episode is? It was like Sarkeesian 5 or something. It's the name of the planet. Let me
Oh,
look
then
it
it would be Narkina 5.
Narkina 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Yes. Spoiler, it's great, but we're going to talk about it like we do every week. So, Rachel, you want to tee us up? What do we got going on?
Oh my God, so much. Part of why I'm a little bit late getting on here is because honestly, so much happened in this because everybody's kind of coming together in a way that's very interesting. But let's start on Coruscant. Let's start on Coruscant and we'll move into the Andor stuff, which is whew, a lot. Okay, so of course we again open up with our your boy, Cyril Karn. Uh, who we learned has not given up the search for Andor. Surprise, surprise. And as I suspected, eventually this would lead him to cross paths
Hmm
with your girl, Dedra. All these
Everyone's
constant.
girl, Rachel.
Well, I mean,
Everyone's
to
girl.
be honest, I mean, she was bringing a little bit of the speed energy, we'll just say, on this episode. So yeah, he keeps requesting this information, and so she pulls him in for questioning, and we get to see one of the things that this show is doing really well are these sort of like two-handers, where it's just two characters like fully committed actors fully committed to these characters going back and forth, and watching the tension and interplay between those two characters is like an action scene in terms of like the tension and the back and forth of it all. And I think we get a little bit of this because we knew that this was going to happen, that they were going to meet, but I didn't know what the outcome would be. Formula would dictate that he would suddenly be on board, but of course this is Andor, so instead she kind of dismisses him and leaves him with a little bit of smile because clearly he's onto something. And as usual, there's some great writing in this. I pulled one quote, which is, "One can never be too aggressive in the preserving of order."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very clear here, unless they're gonna like pull the rug out from under us later on. It's clear now that Cyril does want to be an Imperial. So you were absolutely
Oh.
correct about that. He is 1,000% on board with that. And I love when he starts asking questions. She's like, I'll ask the questions here. And he just like shuts up. I mean, she's just so like imposing, intimidating. I love how she
Yeah.
just kind of like goes in, does her thing. She actually leaves for a minute to talk to the people behind the glass, who are
Yes.
watching this. Goes back in, and it is kind of interesting how she just kind of like, it's not necessarily, I don't think she completely dismisses him out of hand, but she's basically like putting him in his place. Like, look, you forget about all this shit.
Yes.
Thank you for letting us know, but you're in trouble when you see someone like me, and next time it's not going to be me, and next time it's going to be bad for you. But he smiles at the end, just like
Yeah.
I was smiling, because he knows. Well, number one, he's probably like, God damn, yes.
Yes.
Can I
Oh
go on
yeah.
a date with you,
Oh yes.
Ms. Merrill?
Yes.
But he mentions to her that, like, kind of an offhanded comment, because they're talking about like this guy, right? They're kind of on the Luthen now. The Empire is trying to
Yes.
figure out who Luthen is. They don't know who he is. They just
Yes.
know, Axis.
Access. Yes, which of course I immediately thought of Fulcrum.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and Cyril's like, oh, I would know him by the voice. Like he couldn't give her any information. But he's like, if I knew the voice, I'd be able to
Mhm.
tell you. And so that's how
Uh-huh.
we're gonna get Cyril back into this, because
Yeah.
somehow they're gonna get a communication somehow, and we might. I mean, we'll
Oh
talk
yeah.
about if Luthen's slipping a little bit, and he might slip up. We'll see.
I mean, I think he must have to slip up, right? Because as we pointed out, we know where other characters show up later, but Luthen is brand new to this timeline. So he seems to be making some potentially tactical errors. But I'm imagining a scenario where where he comes in and is like ingratiating himself, doing the full Luthen act, and Cyril hears him and just turns around and is like, you.
Yeah.
Woo, it's gonna be
But see,
good.
I'm excited to see how this plays out because I'm
Yeah.
like, it ends here like, well, Cyril's just going back to his, space cubicle and being told to
Mhm.
shut up. But clearly, he's not going to shut up, and he's going to keep pushing this because he wants to rise. He wants to be seen as
Oh,
that
yeah.
important Imperial, and this is the way to get his mother off his ass.
Right.
To be glorious to the Empire, so to speak.
I feel like he's gonna, kill his mom and then, go join up. Like, in
Oh.
real life, that would be his vibe. Did you notice the chiss behind him again in the little cubicle area?
No, no. See,
Ah!
no. I even looked. I watched the last episode again. 'Cause you said it was around the 11-minute mark, and I
Yeah.
did not see anything. So I'm gonna
Okay.
need to. I'm gonna have to go back again.
Well, I took a screenshot for you, and I will share it with you after the show because I was
Oh,
worried that
great,
you
great.
wouldn't see him, but he's even more obvious. He's the one that has the glowing glasses. Like, he's literally his face is lit up. So, for those of you at home who are looking for the chiss, just go back and watch that first scene with him, and you'll see it. You'll
So
definitely
you
see him.
think that's Thrawn, or do you think that's just
I
a
don't know if
random
it's
chiss?
Thrawn. I feel like it is an Easter egg pointing to the fact that Chiss are the one alien that they seem willing to have in the Empire.
Yeah, because in Legends, Thrawn was like literally the only alien
Yeah.
that was allowed, just because
Mhm.
he was such a brilliant tactician and whatnot. And so, yeah, I'd be curious if they change that in the new canon or what. But yeah, interesting. I want to see this
Maybe
chess.
it is. Maybe it is Thrawn. I don't know though. I don't know enough of his backstory to know
I
how
think
he got.
Thrawn would be in the military at this point in
Yeah.
time. He's doing something because yeah, I don't think he'd be working in the Bureau of Standards.
Right. Probably not. Probably not.
That's a
Like
waste of
maybe
his talents.
some sort of art gallery or something, but definitely not the Bureau of Standards. Okay.
I wonder if we'll see him at all in this show, or even if it's not even to speak, but maybe like they meet up with Wolf Yularen and he's just like by his side or something, or if they're gonna save that for letting
Mhm.
Dave Filoni introduce him in Ahsoka.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, if they have managed to cast Thrawn and actually film him and we don't know about it, that's pretty impressive.
Well, there's an actor that shows up in this episode that I don't think anyone knew was coming.
Yeah. That's true. That is a very good point. Okay, so Dedra we find out what her next steps are. She is now that she has jurisdiction over Ferrix, she is ready to drill down on it, because she is intent on finding Andor. Andor has rapidly become the most wanted man in the entire
Yes.
empire.
Like and he has no idea either. Like he has no idea that
No.
everyone is trying to get him. And on one hand, I feel bad for him. He's like in the safest place he could be right
Yes.
now. But as
Oof, he
soon as
doesn't.
it's like, dude, you don't want to break out of this jail. Just stay there.
No.
You're gonna be safer for the time being.
Yes, I mean, yeah, you've got all the lady assassins are after you. Like, hide, stay where you are. You're good. You're good. Assemble the Death Star or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so we know that what she's up to, and that is going to pay off when we get to Ferrix in a little bit. But the last bit on Coruscant is obviously the stuff with Mon Mothma. She's at another senator shindig, and her and her husband speak with Tay Kolma, who's the banker that we met last episode, and he is facing some difficulty accessing funds. Like all the stuff that the Empire is doing is making it very hard to do this without it looking very suspicious. Um, and what we see is that the husband is very unhappy with this connection between the two of them, but it's very unclear if it's just jealousy or suspicion. But then the daughter comes and interrupts them, and she's
Mm.
acting really cagey as well. I know that I am a tinfoil hat aficionado, but I would like to know what you thought of that.
I thought that was very interesting because she
Mhm.
goes up to Tay whatever like, "Oh, you're around again?" Like she actually points out to
Yeah.
him like, "Hey, you keep showing up here and like why do you keep appearing?"
Mhm.
And I don't know if I mean, could the daughter be part of the rebellion? I don't
Oh, I
know.
don't know.
I don't know. I mean, she
Maybe.
could be a young person
Yeah.
who, I mean, she's already been established early on in the early episodes as not liking what her mother is doing, sort
Right.
of kowtowing to the Empire, or at least perceiving that her mom is sort of
Interesting.
working with the Empire and having their best, interest in mind, even though Mon Mothma was like, "Look, I'm trying to fight for these people." So there's already kind of like I don't know if it's an antagonistic relationship between the two, but kind of the daughter seems suspicious, and now she seems even more suspicious of this old flame, or not flame,
Yes.
friend. Flame
Yeah.
possibly? I don't know. It
Mhm.
keeps popping
Mhm.
up, but it seemed deliberate to bring her in suddenly and just have that interaction.
I mean, I'm always my North Star is always a thing you talk about, like, what is the tragedy that, like, turns Mon Mothma into the from the woman that we know now to the woman she is in Rogue One,
Daughter's
and
got to die.
yeah, I
She's
think
going to die.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. But surprisingly, I'm very invested in this family drama, which is usually not where my interests lie, but because there's so much machinations and everything. The thing that I was thinking about as I was watching this, in this scene, in all the scenes, is that this show is a mastery of tension. Every one of these
Yeah.
scenes manages to infuse with tension so that you're just, like, on the edge of your seat. I mean, the synth score does not hurt, but I
Oh, the
just
synth
think
score in this episode was
woo,
dynamite. It was so
yes.
good. It felt like Blade Runner or some shit. And it gets even better when we get to the prison with Cassian and
Oh,
stuff. 'Cause it's
yes.
very THX, right? It's like
Yes.
total callback to George Lucas, a love
Yes.
letter to that. One cool thing that I noticed, and I love this about this show, is you learn so much
Mhm.
about characters through like one little throwaway piece of dialogue. Like when
Yes.
we talk about Vel and Cinta, there's a very important piece of dialogue that
Yep.
Cinta throws out there that you're like, oh, I had no idea, but it informs everything about this character.
Yes.
But there's
Yes.
one here where
Yep.
God, Mon Mothma is talking to, I don't know if it's another senator or something. They're like out a window, and her douchebag of a husband is standing there or whatever,
Yeah.
and they start talking to her about, oh, their marriage. It's like, oh, this was an arranged marriage when I was 15 years old,
Mhm.
and it was when I became a senator at 15, and it's like, oh, do these people actually love each other, or was this just sort of
Mm-mm.
like a cultural, like, hey, you have to marry this guy, and she's been kind of just stuck with this guy for, I don't know, 30, 30
Yeah.
years or whatever of it, and it's really sort of interesting. You're like, wow, I didn't even think about that, because you just assume, oh, this is just they fell in love at some point in time,
Then
got
they
married.
fell
No,
out of
she was
love.
kind of
Yeah.
forced into it, right, by
Mhm.
whatever the politics and the culture is of her home planet. So I was like, that informs so much. It's
Yeah.
just a throwaway line, and
Yeah.
if you're not paying any attention to it, you're gonna miss it. But if you are
Yeah.
paying attention, you're gonna be like, oh man, it makes the character so much richer.
Yes, I mean, it also makes that dynamic make so much sense. And there's like another little wrinkle was just that he was apparently when they got married, he was like the firebrand of their academy. And so
Yeah.
you can see how that relationship would have broken down where he was like kind of grandstanding in his politics and now has become, you know, what he is today. The other thing that happens in this, we've talked about all the like sort of real world illusions. And there is a conversation that she has with some of the other senators, which are unbearable. And I'm like, oh God,
Oh
politicians
yeah,
are
it's
the
a
worst.
great lines.
Where they're talking about, like, surveillance versus safety, and, like, we get our most clear sort of Trump illusion, like, the emperor, like, we in the left tend to be like, "Yes, the empire is this and that," but this, I think, is a very clear illusion that the writers behind this see him as a Trump-like character where they talk about, like, he's too reactive and he's in, a little rough around the edges, whatever they're saying about him, but he tells the truth. He tells the truth. It's the exact kind of language that we hear about, people who are Trump supporters. I just thought it was since we have
Yeah.
had some of the other illusions, I thought I would point that out.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily just Trump. I think it's a commentary on like authoritarian figures all
Yes.
around the world
Yes.
because, supporters of authoritarian figures, I think if you asked a lot of
True.
them, "Hey, are you for an authoritarian figure in your life?" I think most of them, their gut reaction would be like, "Well, no, no, no. But you support this person. Here's X, Y, and Z examples of what they're doing." Well, wait a minute. And they'll try to put a different spin and angle on it. So yeah, and there's like one of those senators even says, "Well, look, man, as long as you don't do anything wrong, you got nothing to fear from the emperor, right? Just,
Right.
just, just be good, you know." So there's
Mhm.
there's definitely a lot of symbolism to obviously things currently in the United States, but I think
Yeah.
all around the world in
That's
terms of
true.
like
That
this
is
is
true.
how governments fall, and this is people just like, well, you make excuses for these sorts of things because no one ever wants to admit that they're wrong about anything. So none of these people who support the emperor want to admit, wow, we were wrong about this guy, he's actually pretty
Right.
evil here. So yeah, I love that though. I love the little
Mhm.
I'm disappointed though that we didn't get to see like the passage of this law, because
Right.
I was hoping in this we'd get to actually see a scene in the Senate itself with the senators kind of debating back and forth and how it gets
Yeah.
passed, but we didn't actually get that. I am disappointed by that.
I mean, we have the set. You know what I mean? I don't think they would make the set just for that one scene where she sees something on the pad. So there must be more Senate stuff. There must
There's
be.
gotta be. I
Right?
hope there
Okay.
is because I was a little confused because even in this episode, I'm not entirely clear. Is there additional like legislation that they're going to be voting on that's different from the legislation they were talking about, which is like enacting the harsher penalties for people and stuff like that? Because even here, she's like hobnobbing with different senators, and one senator says, "Oh yeah, you're giving me this drink with a worm in it,
Yeah.
sweet talking me for votes and stuff like that." So
Right.
I'm a little unclear as to whether or not there's like
Mm.
additional legislation that
My
they're
guess
working
is
on.
yes, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so let's talk about our boy Andor. Andor Andor on the very bad no good day. Oh my god.
This poor guy.
So we pick up where we saw him last. He's now been arrested. He's on prison transport with like some pretty cool restraints, I have to say. I don't know that I've seen that before, but it's kind of your first hint that the technology of the prison industrial and complex is pretty impressive. Um, we get to this. I mean, it's essentially a prison, but it is also an imperial factory facility. Uh, like think labor camp by way of Apple, and you're pretty much on the right track.
This is like, yeah, what's so great about this is you just imagine, you picture in your mind if like, oh, they're gonna throw Cassian into the Imperial Gulag, right? Everyone's initial idea of a gulag sort of thing is
Mhm.
dirty, dingy, horrible
Dungeony.
conditions and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And this is not that.
No.
Not that
And
at all.
and it's more horrifying for that fact, it's such a well-oiled machine. Like, these systems of oppression are so well-oiled, it is indicative of what is happening in the empire and where their resources go and the way that they turn people into just literal resources here. Um
Cogs making cogs for the machine.
Yes, 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 exactly, exactly. And so we get kind of this rundown of how the prison works, and I love it. It's almost like a montage. It's not, but it's almost like that because you see Andor looking around trying to find cracks in the system. Like can he get the boots that will prevent him from being shocked by the floors? Is there a way? Is there any way out? And every turn he makes, it's no, 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 and you watch as the hopelessness and the reality of the situation that he's in sinks in. So there's like two things, parallel things happening. We're getting an education on how this prison works, and it's unlike any I've ever seen before.
It's
It's
amazing. It's
it's
an
like
amazing prison.
yes, they've like gamified it, and which is so grim. They have to produce, right? And if you don't produce, the worst people get a shock, and the best get flavor in their, like, gelatinous food. It
Yeah.
is
And they're like, "Hey, Cassian, yeah, they keep you can eat as much as you want." But they have a tube in their cell. They're like, "Yeah, they'll let you eat as much as you want, but if you want flavor, you gotta you gotta make these cogs faster." And
it's
it's just
such a
it's a
metaphor for the way that the Empire, like, it treats the world at large, right? You know, like, the stick and the carrot, but then, like, the carrot is not great. It's
yeah,
ultimately not great. It's still a prison.
and there's so much incredible stuff in the whole in all of these scenes involving Andor in this prison. Like there's
Mhm.
not only the time like like the prisoners are pissed off about the whole Aldani thing because now their prison sentences
Yeah,
have been extended.
yeah.
So like and it came across. I don't know if it came across to you this way, but it came across to me like this was always the plan. Like the emperor was always going to do this. It's almost like Andor and Luthen and all them pulling off this gave them the sort of the cover to be able to
Mhm.
really institute it and have it accepted by many people, in the galaxy. Because
Yep.
it would have been much harder to just say, "Oh, guess what? We're just going to institute tougher penalties on everyone." They didn't want to do that. They needed that inciting event to use it as well. See, this happened, so now we got to
Mhm.
crack down because people, you know, can understand that on a more basic level if they don't think about it too deeply. And so it's like you're even making the prisoners in the machine, they hate the rebellion, right? They are hating these people. So the very people who should be, on your side, rah rah, let's take these fuckers down. Well, no, now they're pissed off because they have double their sentence, and now they're mad at the rebellion, and it's just
Mhm.
playing all of these people against each other. And I love Andrew.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't hear nothing.
Yeah, right. Right.
Oh, and I
Yeah.
want to point out: is this the first time we see a suicide in anything
I
Star
was
Wars?
wondering the same thing. I believe it is the first suicide in the history of Star Wars. Maybe not in the expanded universe. I don't know, but I do not recall a suicide in any of the
Yeah,
other
and
things.
for the anyone listening, by now you should be watching this show. But for anyone
Jesus,
who's listening to this who
watch the
isn't,
show.
the whole floor, like they bring the prisoners in, they make them take off their shoes and socks, and they're just wandering around barefoot on this floor. And the reason why is because the floor can be electrified at a moment's notice with a shock that will immediately kill you. That's how they keep
Mhm.
everyone. They don't even have doors on or bars on the cells or anything like that. They're like the floor is the bar.
Yeah.
And so they show a dude, and it's like at night, and he's, reminds me of like Shawshank Redemption or something. He just
Yeah.
decides, I'm going to step off and I'm going to kill myself because he can't deal with this. And that all gets back into the replacement stuff, right? When
Mhm.
they're teaching Cassian about, you got to show, well, who shows up? Who appears to show Cassian the ropes as to what he's got to be
Yes.
doing?
So we meet Kino Loy, who is played by none other than Andy Serkis. And as soon as I saw him, my jaw dropped because like you, I had no idea he was in this. But as soon as you see him, there's no mistaking Andy Serkis, and he is kind of the cell block, leader. What's interesting is that the prisoners or the guards, they don't even guard anybody. The
They don't need
prisoners
to.
do it. They come in to remove the bodies, which is a very ominous thing to say. They're like, they only come in to take or remove bodies. I'm like, ooh. Yeah, so he's pretty great in this. He's at the end of his sentence, nearly at the end of his sentence, and is determined to keep things running smoothly, presumably so he can get the full world.
I have a
Um,
question for you. So when we were watching Boba Fett,
yes.
when Danny Trejo shows up as the Rancor keeper, we are like,
No.
oh, come on! It's Danny Trejo. Did you feel that same way when Andy Serkis showed up here? You're like, ah, why? It's Andy Serkis. That's how that I think of it as Andy Serkis, or was he just another character to
I
you?
mean, at least he has previous Star Wars connection. You know what I mean? It's not the first time that we've had Andy Serkis in Star Wars. So no, it didn't really bother me as much.
It didn't bother me, and the reason why it didn't bother me is Andy Serkis can actually act.
There's
Um,
also that that part.
Whereas Danny Trejo, I love. Don't get me wrong, everyone. I love Danny Trejo
Right.
just as much as we
Yeah.
love Danny Trejo. He's
Right.
he's a national treasure, but he is not a thespian extraordinaire.
No,
And
Danny Trejo plays Danny Trejo, and that's
yeah,
great. That's his lane, and we love it.
yeah, Andy Serkis, like he can. I mean, he's a master of being able to just do all sorts of different types of roles. And it was immediately like, oh wow, that's Andy Serkis, and then I forgot about it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
holy shit, all this shit he's saying, like, I don't want to fuck with this guy.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
he just walks me in,
No.
he's like, what the fuck you doing standing around? Hurry up, I want some flavor in my food tonight.
Yeah, no, he's I mean, it's nice to see him get to do something else other than because, I feel like Snoke was being set up to be really interesting, and then they were like, "Just kidding, we cut him in half."
Was Ryan
Uh
Johnson fucking goddamn grumble grumble?
Fair. Very, very fair. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, I know, okay, so there's a couple of little things I think are interesting in this. First of all, there's a great line again when he's first getting into the prison, and they're like, "Breathe that fresh air, maybe your last." And
Yeah,
it's like, throughout this episode, though, there's, like, all this reference to, like, not being able to catch your breath. When we get to Marva, she's not able to catch her breath. It's a repeated sort of motif through this episode, and it makes sense because I personally, from the moment this thing started, could not catch my breath. It is very tense. The other thing is we meet a character that will show up in Rogue One in
yeah.
this Melshi.
Melshi. Yep.
hmm which makes his rescuing later in Rogue One kind of more poignant because we met him in a very hopeless place, literally and sort of as a character in this episode.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about this as well, and this is probably teeing up for, whether Cassian and Melshi do the prison break, or if someone finds them. And personally, I think the Cassian's going to get out because I think there's already a prison break planned by the people that are in there with him. And the
All
reason
the
why I think
hands, yeah.
that sign language. Remember, like, they're
Mm,
all in the line, and that dude is like looking out the window, and he's doing some sort of like sign language to the person like 300 yards away in the other tube of people.
yeah,
I think that there already is some sort of overthrow. Now I don't know how they're going to get the fuck off that. I mean, they're in the middle of an ocean. I
yeah.
don't know how they get away. I'm excited to find out how this prison break's going to work, but
Yeah, I mean, I
um,
have theories, but so far what I've learned is that the show is always surprising me. Like, I thought maybe Miro was gonna they were eventually gonna fingerprint this guy and find out that he's who he
yeah,
is.
are there fingerprints in Star Wars? I don't even know. Like, that's a great point. It's like, well, how would you? I mean, clearly they have like the little. Oh, I'm blanking on what it's called, but they have like the little hologram. What? And
Yeah.
here's Cassian's photo. But surely the Empire must have fingerprints and DNA and all that stuff that they could use to find these people.
So I'm thinking maybe it's a cool a prison break and also she gets there. I don't know. Like one of those things where she's the tension is she is who's going to get there first. Like are they going to get out or is she going to get him in the prison? That was my guess, not necessarily the prison break, but that she would find him and she would get him off world.
Are you talking about
Um
Cinta?
no, I'm
Who?
talking about your girl, Dedra Miro. I wonder if she's
Oh,
gonna
you
figure
think
out he's
she's
in
gonna find him?
jail.
Oh,
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like they're on the hunt for him. Like I could see her figuring out, like if somebody comes into prison and he's the most wanted person in the Empire, figuring it out that it's him. And maybe she's how he gets out. Either that or he
okay.
serves his prison sentence. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's the thing. I was like, I've never been more excited for a prison jailbreak in my life. I'm like, what's going to happen here? How is this all going to shake out? Because we know he's got to get out. But the best thing that shows like this do is they put people or their characters in situations that seem impossible to
Yeah.
get out of,
Yeah.
and then an audience is like, well, wait a minute. I can't figure out a way that they would be able to get out of this. Even if they were to break out and get to the top of this floating barge, how are they going to do
Right.
it? There's no planes up there. Like what's going to happen? And so that's what makes great storytelling, gets you coming back. 'Cause you're like, how? I need to see how they're going to get out of this
Mhm.
jam. So yeah, it could be my girl.
I could
We'll
see it.
see.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, my predictions are not great, but that was my theory.
I didn't think it was going to be her because I thought, we'll get to it, but I thought she was going to be wrapped up with Bix in the next
Oh.
episode. So I
Mm.
mean, she'd have to
Well, this
leave
is
that situation.
we're at the beginning of another 3 episode arc. So I'm guessing maybe on the third one we'll have our escape.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't
Like
know.
kind of like how the heist, you know? All right. So let's talk about Ferrex. Ferrex is a bummer. Ferrex is a big bummer. We catch up with Marva, whose health is failing. But man, she's awesome. We find out that like she was trying to find a way to sneak under tunnels into the hotel so that they could sneak up on the Imperials. I just love her.
Yeah,
She's like this badass old broad, like, she's a badass old rebel. I don't know. There are, like, women in my life that are like that are, like, older gray-haired ladies who are just still total badass, like, anarchists, and I don't know. I love Marva. She's such a cool character. But her failing health means that Bix does something very stupid, and that is try to reach out to Luthen, who was like, "Cut the line."
yeah, and this is interesting because I've had many a conversation with our good friends Ronan and Steve about characters doing stupid things to get the plot moving forward,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily believe this is a stupid move on her part
No,
because
no.
it feels like a move that anybody would do in that situation.
Yes.
And it's like Cassian's mom, I gotta try to find Cassian. Like his mom's gonna die here like, very very soon.
Right.
And who can I reach out to? I got to reach out to Luthen, and we'll talk about his whole thing because when we get to it. But
Yeah.
I again, even when a character does something quote unquote stupid, it's not from well, why would they do that sort of
Right.
motive? Why would
It's
Boba Fett
stupid
do something like that?
if you have the information we have. It's stupid. It's not stupid. She doesn't know that Dedra Mero has
Yes.
gotten like extraordinary powers that even the Empire is just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll give you this. So it's not stupid. It's more just like, damn it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So take that, Stephen Ronan. Our show's still smart, even when people make mistakes. It's still smart. Okay, so what else happens on Ferrex? Oh, right. So they are not the only people. So obviously, Miro is on the hunt for Bix, but she's not the only one. There's also, we see Vel and Cinta have reunited, and they are on the planet spying on Marva and Bix, waiting for Andor to return. And they kind of have this moment that you alluded to, where Vel wants to stay together, and Cinta is just like, nope, rebellion's a bigger deal. And then alludes to Vel's past and the fact that she's someone who comes from money and is trying to escape her family, which definitely recontextualized the way we saw her on Coruscant last episode.
Yeah. She was dressed real fancy.
Uh huh. Uh
real
huh.
real fancy. And I think that's so great. Again, it's just this moment between them. And number one, that's kind of like almost a throwaway line in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if they'll delve further into her backstory and all of that in this, but if they don't, again, it informs so much
Mm-hmm.
about her character. But I love the moment there where you clearly see that Cinta is far more like the zealot for the cause
Oh
than Vel
yes.
is, because Vel is just like, look, we just went through all the shit. Can we just like go back to the hotel room and spend some time together? And and Cinta's like, the
Nope.
Empire will never rest.
Yeah, the
We're not
Empire
gonna
never
rest.
takes a breath.
And
Exactly.
she told her, she's like, look, I said the cause comes first. You come like the scraps that are
Poor
left over.
Vel.
Yeah, and Vel's just kind of like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt so bad for her in that moment. I was like, can you tell you could take like an hour? I mean,
Right.
come on. If my girl's busy elsewhere, she ain't gonna come get you for an hour. But again, and when we get to the Saw Gerrera stuff, this
Mm.
whole episode here really is setting up the fact that so many people within the rebellion itself have completely different ways in which they go about wanting to do things,
Yeah.
how motivated they are, how
Yep.
fully into it they are. Like there's a quote unquote big cause, right? Like, oh yeah, we
Mhm.
want to overthrow the empire in blah blah, but they don't seem to agree
No.
on the right way to do it, which is
No.
exactly how these things work.
Yep.
It's messy and it's dirty,
Mhm.
and you're seeing the human side of that messiness, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see because, like, right now, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but a little bit, but like, Luthen is essentially sort of the leader of the rebellion to some degree, right? Because he's sort of the driving force of what is going to become the Rebel Alliance, but he is unable to make that pitch. And that is the difference between him and Mon Mothma, I think. Like, she actually, because she has, there, I think she has a particular skill set and that she will be the person that's finally able to pull it together, and that's essentially what makes her the leader of the Rebel Alliance. Is she's the one that they can trust. Like Luthen, if you to know Luthen is to not trust Luthen. I don't think no matter how many machinations he does, how much money he's able to raise, how many connections he has, there is there is something so deeply untrustworthy about him that he would never, and ruthless about him that
Yeah,
he
he'll
would
throw you
never
under the
be. Yeah,
bus.
yeah, he
Him,
would
he's trying to
never be
kill
able to do.
Cassian. He wants to kill Cassian, and I think what we'll find as we go forward, maybe into season two, is that what will make Mon Mothma the great leader
Mhm.
of the rebellion is that she can balance the compassion with like
She
the
has
calculating.
idealism. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like she'll be able to balance that, and I think
Mhm.
that whatever
Mhm.
horrible event happens to her that caused her to be fully involved, I fully expect we'll see like some wavering there with her, right? Like maybe
Right.
she'll try to make that decision. Hey, I'm gonna be more of a Luthen, and then something's gonna pull her back. Like no, 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 because even in Rogue One, when she's in that, they mention Saw Gerrera in Rogue One, and she's like, "Yeah, we've had
Ugh.
a lot of problems with Saw. She won't even deal with Saw Gerrera.
Mhm.
Like she's like completely anti Saw Gerrera
I
at that
mean,
point in time because of his tactics and what he does. So yeah, I think she's like the moral fabric of the rebellion.
yes, and I mean the like rebellions are built ultimately on hope, right? You know, they say that activism is sci-fi because we're imagining a world that doesn't currently exist. And I think for it to be the rebellion of the Star Wars that we will come to know, you know, you need a Mon Mothma character. Like you need a Luthen and you need a Saw Gerrera and you need all of these different factions, but ultimately for it to be successful you need to have that core of like hope and idealism at its core. Like that has to be there, you know,
You
that
have
is
to
what people rally
follow.
around.
You have to follow a good person,
Yeah.
a good leader, not
Yeah.
someone who is willing to murder as many people as possible, because then
Yeah.
your message gets really gray and
Yeah.
people have a hard time
Can't rally
buying
behind
into.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they can't do it. So I think Mon Mothma will turn out to be that person. Well, obviously she does. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we got to just move on to Segramelo, which is a new planet we've been to. We know it is different than all the other places we've been because the first person we see is an alien. So
Hmm.
that right away is it's interesting how the inclusion because there's no aliens on what is it Narkina 5. There
Yeah, something like that.
everybody is human,
Yeah.
everybody is human. But when we get to this
You know what?
planet.
Do you know why I think that is? There's that initial scene when Andor is being told like you got to go on this ship because you're going to
Uh-huh.
go to this planet, whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I have no idea if the writers were thinking about this in the background, but just my mind went as a writer. Well, of course, all of the humans would be in that on that planet because they're making specific things for the Death Star. So you'd
Mm,
have to have like maybe like the five-fingered humans can make the pieces of the Death Star that need that, where
interesting.
you couldn't have like a whole shitload of different aliens with weird hands and claws and shit like
That
that
you're
trying
right,
to
they're
build those things.
cogs. They're cogs, they have to
So
fit.
I don't know, but that's what I thought when I was watching.
That is very clever. I also think that yeah, the we know the Empire wants very little to do because they're so xenophobic
Hmm.
with anything that is not a human. But I think it also speaks to when we get into the politics and sort of the morality between these two men. Another incredible two-hand scene. So, Luthen has come to this planet to meet with Saw Gerrera, who fans of the franchise are very familiar with. And he's doing his attempt at trying to pull together a rebel alliance by offering like basically a bounty. Like he's like, I will give you this technology if you're willing to meet with this guy. I'll give it to you for free. And he's not appealing to Saw in any way above just like you know, very just financial gain. Just like
Just
very
meet with this dude. That's all I'm asking. Just meet with this guy.
yes. And they have a really interesting conversation about sort of like you said, it's pointing out the way that the factions, like even though the bigger goal may be anti-empire, the reasons matter and the route. Like there's the
Mhm.
thing about separatists, and we know his history was the separatists from Clone Wars. And then there was something else he mentioned about human cultists, which I thought
Yeah,
was really interesting.
human cultist. He name drops all kinds of like
Hmm.
weird separate factions. I'm like, I want to know everything about all of these factions. Like every single one of them. Give me a book, give me a comic, give me a show, whatever about all of these different factions because I wasn't really aware that there was this many different things. There's always like different cells operating, but you just sort of think of it in terms like, well, Saw Gerrera's on an island, but
Yeah.
he's like, no, there's like 15 others
Right.
and they all disagree with one another.
Right. Right. And that's I mean, like this is something that if you've ever done any sort of work like this, like any sort of activism, like the fatal flaw of the empire is like their hubris and their reactionary crackdown. Like it's disorganization I can't even talk, Jesus, disorganization on the other side, like the different factions, the wanting to come to everything as a consensus as a group as opposed to having a leader. Like that is where the flaw is on the other side. And I think this does a really good because this is such a dissection of this sort of dynamic. It does such a good job of kind of critiquing some of the weaknesses on the rebellion side as well, and really draws real world allusions to it. Like, I mean, just think of like the different movements that we've had, over the years. Like you can go to like Me Too or um uh what was the one that was like, the one on Wall Street where they did there's no
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street or Black Lives Matter by not having a figurehead, or having people fighting to be that figurehead, those movements tend to dissolve, as a result of it. And so I think that there's some interesting commentary happening here on this side as well.
Yeah, and this scene is just obviously the writing is incredible, but you have Stellan Skarsgård and
Yes.
Forrest
I
Whitaker
mean, come on.
going back and forth, and like Forrest Whitaker, he's only on screen for like 5 minutes, but he is so fucking great as
Yeah.
Saw Gerrera,
Mhm.
and just the way with the conviction, he's like, they are lost. Like he. It's like and I think Luthen's like, all right, this makes sense as to why Forrest Whitaker, like Saw Gerrera, he's not going to change. He is, I mean, and we find out in this that
Conviction.
yeah, he
Mhm.
is very well funded. He's one of the most well funded of all these cells. I mean, he's got ships. He's got all these various things. He has the money to buy these things from Luthen,
Uh-huh.
whereas other cells probably do not have the resource to be able to buy that. And I love at the very end of it when Luthen kind of gives it back to him. It's like, you're just an anarchist in a cave. Like, what are you doing? And he was just
Yeah.
like, nope, not buying anything today. Good luck. Have fun, Luthen. And Luthen, because we're so used to seeing Luthen win
Yeah.
and get what he
He
wants,
always gets his way.
and
Yeah.
he encounters a man whose conviction in his own belief system is superior to Luthen's
Yep.
conviction in his, and I don't think
Yep.
Luthen really knows how to quite process that.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like it kind of mirrors the scene he had with Mon Mothma where you realize they are not on the same page
Yeah.
entirely. Like you see the same sort of he admitted to Mon Mothma that he had done the Aldani heist, but he lies to Saw Gerrera. Like there is a lack of
Oh,
fundamental trust there.
that opening when they're like, "Well, who did it? Did you do
Mm.
it? Did you do it? Well, let's just agree that it was a masterpiece." Whoever it was, like, they won't even sort of like credit themselves. They're feeling each other out because Luthen's trying to see, will Saw lie about it? Will Saw tell him, yes, I was the one that pulled this heist off?
Right.
But the writing of this, it's like we as an audience know that Saw didn't do it, and if they wrote him to say that, then well, he's just a liar. I immediately
Yeah.
don't like this guy. Um, but they don't do that. They just do this back. Oh, I love it. It's just there's so much forethought put into the writing of these characters. It's almost like
Mhm.
Tony Gilroy was like, okay, here's my vast array slash spectrum of responses that Saw Gerrera could say, and I'm going to go through each one and what are the repercussions of each thing that he could possibly
Yeah.
say. And if that repercussion is it harms the character, I'm not using that. I'm going to
Right.
do something else.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Mhm.
And we should back up just quickly because before Luthen gets here, he has, I don't know, what's the name of his assistant or the girl that works in his, like Clea or
Yes.
something like that. I'm not sure, but
Leia
when
Markey.
okay, when Bix is calling in, and Luthen's first thing is like, answer it.
Mhm.
Answer it. I want to know about Cassian and blah blah because he's paranoid that Cassian's gonna burn him, and he's gonna the Empire's
As
gonna
he
come down
should
on him.
be.
Yeah, and I love her where she's just like, you are slipping. Like, what is wrong with you? This is a stupid play. You're overreacting, you're acting out of fear here basically, and you got to keep your eye on the prize, and basically has to talk him down. And
Uh-huh.
we're starting to see cracks in Luthen now. Like we're
Yeah.
starting to see where he's getting impatient. He wants things to happen quicker.
He got a
And
taste of it. From the pulling off the heist, like, that was definitely a sea change for him.
yes, yeah,
Uh-huh.
and we're like a month because there's like a month transition. They kind of show when Cassian's in prison that like 30 cycles go by. They're 12-hour shifts, by the way, uh, which is a
Ooh.
nightmare in and of
Ooh.
itself. Just doing cogs over and over and over again. Um, but I love the fact that like you're starting to see rebellions. You know, people get impatient, and
Yeah.
that's when people make mistakes
Yep.
because he wants to capitalize on this. And in his mind it's like the longer we dick around and we wait, the more time my girl Dedra is getting to find them and crush this rebellion. And he wants things to move, and his assistant's like, look, you gotta wait. you,
Yeah.
you just gotta wait.
Yeah.
And isn't it? I'm sure you've noticed this. It just feels like the female characters in this show are like the
Mhm.
ones that take charge of everything. Like they're the smart ones. They're the
Yeah.
ones that figure everything out. They understand everything, and they're the ones like keeping their specific lanes. Like everybody that's trying to stray, no, get back in the lane. This is the way we go.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely some of the best written female characters on TV. And
Yeah,
not
I
just
mean, it's
because they're putting them in the lane, but because they're, like, nuanced and they're smart and they're different from one another. They're so like, Mon Mothma could not be more different than Vel or Senta. Like, the diversity of character traits is so rich in this that it's just I don't know. I love it. I love it. I mean, I'm sure the internet part of the internet is mad about it, but
do you
not this
think
part.
like the next Star Wars shows, like for example, Ahsoka's coming, right? We're
Yeah.
all very excited
Mhm.
to see Ahsoka. But if the writing is not on caliber with this, like
Oh
I
god.
just come to expect this now. But I'm like, well, Dave Filoni doesn't write like this. I mean, he writes great stuff, but he doesn't
Right.
write dialogue like this. Are
No.
we just going to feel like it's not as good as we wanted it to be because we're going to compare it to like the dialogue written in this?
Mhm. I mean, I think the test is when we go back to The Mandalorian, right? Because The
Oh yeah.
Mandalorian is like pure serotonin, but it ain't this. It ain't this. And is it gonna still feel as good when we go back? I don't know. I feel like I could watch Clone Wars and still have a great time.
Yeah.
So
Story wise, I think I'll still be on board with it. Dialogue wise, we'll
you're
see.
gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it benefits that like The Mandalorian doesn't really talk that much.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
so that helps.
Let's make that a silent series. A silent series.
Yes. Yes, yes, I'm on board. All right. So, yeah, this ends all of our characters except for maybe Dedra, who's having a good old torture time, end up in a really bad places. Like Luthen fails at his overtures to Saw. Um, Andor, I have to say, his performance as you're watching his hope die, and when he's just sitting in his cell at the end of the night is just gut wrenching. But yeah,
Well, they do that thing where when he first gets in there and he's being trained to
yeah,
build these cogs,
yeah,
like he does it slow, and by the end of the episode,
yeah.
it's the last shot is literally him. He's like an expert at it, right? He's
That's
just not
yeah,
thinking anymore, and he's just building, building, building because they've trained him
yeah, it's
uh, to
yeah.
do that.
It's
I will.
worse than him just sat in a cell. It's horrifying to see how quickly he's fallen into this cog roll.
Yeah, and I will say that probably the best scene because we didn't really talk about Bix. Bix,
Mhm.
they basically Dedra kind of finds out about her because the guy who sort of runs the shop where the communication tower link is to Luthen sort of is like, okay, yeah, go ahead, you can use it. Dedra gets him and is torturing him, and there's an amazing moment, and this is where I'm like, thank God my girl's not going to the rebels because she does this amazingly, I wrote down here, deliciously evil
Oh,
thing where she's like, the guy's like, oh, should we clean up here because they're bringing Bix to her? And she's like, no, I want her to see him. And as soon as the
yep.
door opens, she goes, oh my God, guys, please get him out. We don't want her to see, like acting like,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, that is so imperial,
Oh,
manipulative,
yeah.
and great and amazing. And I no longer fear that she's going to go
No.
to the rebels. I
No.
think she's
I'm
going to
glad
be,
you're on yeah, because
yeah,
I was watching it and I was just like, there's no when she was, like, giving her impassioned speech to get, like, her resources to go to drill down at Ferrex, I was like,
yes,
"No, this is not, like these convictions are, like, soul level. She is not going to change side. She is the truest of true believers."
yeah, yeah. I wonder. I'm scared for what's going to end up happening to her because she's going to fuck something up. Someone's going to escape. Cassian will escape. Somebody's going to escape, and the Imperials are not going to look kindly on failure.
I
Maybe
kind
that's
of
where we get
feel
Vader to show in and force choke
I kind of feel like we're
her.
I kind of feel like there's not going to be like justice in this in any way. Like, like a lot of times you're waiting for your villains to either make a character turn or to be punished. Like I feel like that's not going to happen with this. I don't know. I feel like we're going to see them elevated by the end of this season
I hope so.
or this series.
Definitely this season is going to. It has to end with Cassian and the rebels suffering some sort of major setback, right?
Right.
It's got to because we got to go into season two thinking like, how the fuck are they gonna recover from this? And I don't
Yeah.
know exactly what's gonna happen, but I feel like because you know catapulting ahead towards the end of season two, if it leads directly into Rogue One,
Yeah.
um, Empire is pretty much at its peak power
Yeah.
at that point in time. So yeah, we know the Empire technically has to win. Obviously, the Death Star plans are on the table for Rogue One. They're gonna steal them and everything like that. But
Yeah.
the Empire's got to win.
Right. Well, they're gonna
I'm
get them boffins. I don't know who else they're gonna get, but
Yeah. Many Bothans died, but that was for the second Death Star. That was not for the first.
oh,
Um,
okay. My bad. My bad.
so yeah, well, Tony Gilroy, give me a series about that.
Yeah.
Give me a
Give
series about
me
the Bothans stealing the second Death Star
anything you want.
plans.
Give me one about that chiss in the background. That's what I want.
Yeah, yeah. Now the only other note I had on here that we didn't really touch base with was I had a note about Tay. And when they're at the party with Mon Mothma goes up to her douchebag ponytail forced
Ooh,
husband
he's the
and
worst.
and it's like, hey, where's Tay? And he's like, he left unexpectedly, like he's gone. And then
Mhm.
they show Mon Mothma, oh, okay, no problem. And when she turns, like her smile just drops, like when she's walking towards the camera, like
Mhm.
is she now concerned that Tay might not be sort of like the ally that she maybe thought, or does she think that maybe douchebag ponytail husband knows what's up? I was curious as
I
to what
mean,
you
where did
thought,
he
what she was
go?
thinking.
Where did he
He just
go?
left the party.
Did he leave on his own recognizance,
We
though?
don't know.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, we don't know.
Did he get snatched up? Mm.
Not sure because they have a whole thing about early on when she talks to him at the party early on. He's like, "Look, it's way harder to get the money stuff rolling now because the empire's cracking down on banks and doing all of this stuff." And it realized, well, now it's not going to be so easy to raise money and funnel it through this weird charity that they're trying to set up and things of that nature.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I still have a sneaking suspicion he might turn out to be a bad guy.
Yeah. The question is, was he always, or is he gonna is whatever is potentially happening now gonna turn him? Hmm.
Oh, and what did you think of the drink?
Oh God, with the worm.
Yes, because what I thought was interesting is everybody there was drinking these things. They would drop this worm in this
Mhm.
alcohol, and the worm would dissolve, and then that was like, oh, I don't know what you would call it. It was like a delicacy or something that
Yeah.
everybody was drinking. But Mon Mothma wouldn't do it.
Yeah, they were live to begin with.
Yeah, and
I
she would not do it. She's
and
like,
the
I've lost my
husband took
taste for it or whatever.
2. The
Yeah,
husband took 2.
took hers. So I was like, such a weird little cool thing. It's like dissolving a live worm in this alcohol, and what does it do? Does it get you drunker faster? Does it make it get you high? Like, well,
I
what
think
exactly happens?
maybe. I think maybe there's some sort of, narcotic effect, but I think it's yes, she has to have her wits about her. That's one thing. But the other
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
if everybody else is drinking and her husband's drinking too, that's good. Keep him drunk, keep him busy, because then she can, sneak off and talk to Tay. But I also think it speaks again to, she doesn't necessarily have the stomach for violence yet. Yet.
Yeah,
Um, we'll see if that changes.
she's gonna have to at some point.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
can't she can't be, Saw Gerrera level of violence. She's gonna have to
No.
go.
No, 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 no.
Do you think we're
Like,
gonna see Saw coming up? Like, is there gonna be more Saw, or do you think this was just a one-off, like, one appearance we'll get of Saw,
oh, no,
just to let us know he's out there?
I think we're going to see more of Saw because, like you said, he is specifically referenced in Rogue One, and he's being set up kind of kind of a terrorist character, like even down to him being in the caves. Like all those things feel like very clear allegories for real world stuff. So I suspect maybe one of the driving forces for her to pull the Rebel Alliance together is having to get some of these different sort of cells to stop doing things.
I wonder, now that you say that, because it's almost like, like an Osama bin Laden sort of situation, right?
Yep, that's what I
with
was thinking.
with Saw Gerrera. I
Yep.
wonder if what's going to end up happening is Saw is going to be the catalyst to bring all these other ones together. Because if Saw does something so abhorrent,
Yeah.
like a 9/11 sort of thing,
I
and
mean,
all these other disparate rebels kind of look at it like, whoa, okay, yeah, we can't let this be the face of what we're doing here
yeah.
because it's going to be a lot worse. So I wonder if that's how Saul will come back. And if you remember in Rogue One, he's fucked up. Like he
Yeah.
has to use like an inhale, like a breathing apparatus and stuff. And he's still like okay at this point in the timeline. He's not. So something has to happen to him from now to Rogue One to get him all fucked up. Um, but yeah, I think Saw could. I think maybe season two we'll see a lot more of Saw. I don't know if we're gonna see him more in the rest of this season.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they would waste a Saw Gerrera. I guess it's possible that he would be a cameo, but that feels like other Star Wars. You know what I mean? That doesn't I feel like everything is so incredibly purposeful in this that it's not about stunt casting and cameos and fan service. Because it's in the world of this, it references things, but I feel like you don't waste the metaphor of Saw Gerrera for one throwaway scene.
Yeah, I
Not that it's
definitely.
throwaway, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll be back, and I think it's interesting when we think about stunt casting and like Danny Trejo.
Oof.
So to me that's stunt casting.
Yeah.
If it turns out that Forrest Whitaker is in like one scene of this 24 episodes, right? And we hear about Saw Gerrera doing stuff, in the background, like they talk about Emperor Palpatine is doing this and that.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'll be okay with it. I wouldn't consider it stunt casting
Stunt
because
casting's probably not the right word. I meant just sort of like a cameo.
yeah, because well, I think a lot of people will look at it as stunt casting. I think a lot of people would be like, "Oh, well, they just threw him in there," but I don't think it
Mm,
is because he gives so much information and detail in the context of what's going on or the
yeah,
rest of the galaxy with all of these,
right.
and you need him to have that point of view. And it's amazing, like because Saw Gerrera is such a powerful person within. If you're talking about we have 12 different cells operating throughout the galaxy, Saw Gerrera sells pretty much the alpha of all of them,
Right.
right? He's got
Right.
the money, he's got the resources, he's got the manpower, the ships. You even when they show that awesome design, I don't know what the name of that alien is that was in Rogue One, but when
Yeah.
they first see him with the long like rifle, he's got the tubes coming out. Looks
Uh-huh.
badass. It looks like something like
Yeah.
on an Iron Maiden album or something like
Ah!
that.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
does.
you look in the background and you just see like all these kind of X-wing type ships back there, and you're like,
Mhm.
how the fuck did Saw Gerrera get all of this stuff? Go
Yeah.
watch Clone Wars, people.
Right.
Anakin trained him,
Yep.
trained him in tactics. Like
Yep.
all of these people know like Anakin Skywalker, which is just incredible. It's like
Yeah.
it's just Anakin really got around. He really got around.
He sure did.
But yeah, I mean, another incredible
Yep.
episode. I don't think
Agreed.
there was a single like action sequence in it, and it didn't matter. I cannot wait to see what happens next week,
Yep.
how they get out of this, if they do. I don't know.
Wednesday is the new Friday, man. It's the day I look forward to.
Yes, and I will be out of town, so I can't watch it until I get back. It'll be like next Saturday before I can watch the latest episode,
I mean,
or episode 9.
samesies. So that's it. That actually works out well because I was worried I was gonna have to tell you I'm gonna need a delay. So we're on the same page. This is good. So we'll
We're
pick.
both going to be delayed.
Yes,
Both delayed.
yes.
So
So listeners, sorry you're gonna have to wait a few extra days. I know you're just dying every Wednesday to hear from us, but
yes, but we are gonna probably record a Tales from the Jedi or
yes,
Tales of the Jedi episode
that's
maybe this
true.
weekend. So I'll schedule that episode to be in place of the normal Wednesday and/or episode, and we'll talk all about it. Rachel hasn't seen it yet. I watched
Nope.
all 6 episodes earlier this evening, and they're all amazing. It's like
Oh,
it's like
yay!
top shelf Filoni, and it does not matter that they're only like 10 to 15 minutes long,
Okay.
because the stories that they're telling are like these little glimpses of moments, not like a
Yeah.
full long thing. And it's like the writing is so tight that I didn't need anything else.
Okay.
But you get to see all kinds of. I mean, we get Yaddle in action.
That is wild. That we're
Yeah.
getting a Yaddle story.
And Yaddle is voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard,
Indeed. Mhm,
so who is
mhm.
amazing. Um, so that's it, everybody. Leave a comment if you want. Do you agree with our takes on Andor? That this is an amazing show. Quickly getting up into my list of best shows that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Personally,
yeah.
slowly getting up there. I don't think I'd put it like in the top 10. But it's already in the top 20, I would
Interesting.
think. But because I'm trying to think, I was actually thinking about that today. Like all of the shows I watched over my life, Carnival and X Files and Battlestar Galactica, like
Briscoe County
ranking,
Jr.
yeah, Briscoe, like ranking all of these things, and I'm like, if this keeps on this trajectory where
Yeah.
every episode is perfect, and there's like nothing
Yeah.
wrong, it's easily gonna hit my top 10 of favorite television shows. But I don't want to declare it yet.
No.
Gotta stick the landing.
It's early. It's early.
Gotta
Yeah.
stick the landing. So with that, thanks everybody for listening to our review of Andor episode 8. Stay tuned next week for more stuff from I don't know, Smiting the Rebel Scum show. Is that what we're changing it now to?
No. I think we had it right the first time.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.